Hey everyone, welcome to Community Roots, a place where we gather in community to talk about mental health so we can travel the journey of life together. As always, I'm Samuel Richards.
I'm Julie Richards.
And I'm Sarah Wakefield.
I wanted to put that as always in there just in case you're confused. Like we switch seats sometimes. No. Yeah, I'm excited for this. We're going to do another trail mix episode, which is fantastic. Another day to pick out the chocolates of the group and kind of leave the raisins behind.
Why is it that some people like raisins and some people don't? Do you notice that? Like if you make an oatmeal raisin cookie or if you have something with raisins, it's like there are people that are like, ooh, raisins, no. And then other people are like, oh, yeah. Raisins are controversial.
If I smell cinnamon and raisins, and I'm like, okay, this seems like a good cinnamon raisin cookie. But if I look at it and I see, ooh, chocolate chip cookie, and I grab it and I look closer and it's a
And then you go, that was a raisin.
I've been lied to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raisins are just could be chocolate.
The healthier version.
Yeah.
Potentially. Well, yes, we're here for a trail mix today, and we are reflecting these episodes, these segments that we're doing on trail mix. Just to remind you all, since they're a little bit new still, it's a chance to kind of pause and reflect. It's what you would say could be journal prompts, or how do I take what I'm learning and make it more personal to me and more experiential. So it's not just I'm getting head knowledge and building cognitive muscle, but instead I'm trying to be more embodied and have integration of the things I'm learning, and I'm actually sitting to digest them. I'm almost like pausing on the trail a little bit, sitting on the rock, have my journal with me. Some people like to journal in an actual book and a pen, or sometimes digitally, or sometimes even just within your own mind. You don't maybe want to use the journal. That's okay. Don't disregard the episode because of that. It's just a chance to pause and reflect. So what we've been talking here recently about on Community Roots, the whole season 3 has been on how to be a healthy human, but recently we've talked about triggers and unconscious dynamics. So how are the things impacting us all the time, almost like on our computer, the things that are in the background that are always running and taking up energy, but we're not always aware of them until we kind of do a check-in to notice them. So yeah, we're going to reflect today on unconscious dynamics and triggers.
I think that's important too. Like you were talking about taking that pause during hiking, especially like triggers is such a deep topic and has a lot there that it's good to take a pause, especially after something intense. Maybe we just hiked up some really steep hill, and it's a good moment to pause and kind of, sit with the new information you have, but also taking a break for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Grab your water bottle, breathe a little, and sit with it. Triggers are something that happen regularly. We get practice with them if we can begin to shift our awareness to that's what's happening. So if we suddenly get hit with a wave of something really big that jolts us or potentially feels destabilizing in the moment as it's happening, like we can get really irritated or annoyed or scared or shaken or jolted by something. And it's not until we pause to realize that it's not about the thing that we think we're upset about. It's the meaning that it had or what it reminded us of. So I'm curious for you, Sarah and Samuel, like as we process our trail mix together, what things have you been noticing as we've been talking about this topic, as far as what experiences from your past are impacting you, maybe in how you reflect on your own growth? We've talked about nurturing our inner plants and what things feel I guess it's probably a bit of a spectrum. Like on one side of it, we might be more fully integrated where we feel like we've processed and digested and learned all the good lessons from something and really grown from it. And it's really settled in our nervous system. It doesn't hold a charge anymore. It doesn't activate us and trigger us anymore. And maybe on the other end of the spectrum, we feel really vulnerable. We have a maybe more sensitive nervous system, more easily activated or triggered or vulnerable or shaky. You kind of have to find the language that resonates with you the most and how you want to describe it. But if you were to kind of draw a spectrum a little bit of where are the things that we talked about triggers as being a map, like where do I need to go that needs some work? What needs more time and attention?
As I thought about this, or I reflected on what you've prompted us with, I can't say that I've am fully integrated in all my triggers. What I can say is I have all of the tools now, or I've been given a large tool chest that I can use and I can pull from whenever I am in a situation where something has triggered me, or I wanted to say, I want to be fully integrated. And for me, I don't know that that's going to be possible. But what I can say is I'm partially integrated. I'm integrated enough that when I come into when something happens or there's some sort of trigger, I'm at a point where I can just turn to my tool chest almost subconsciously and say and ask myself questions, or manage the situation so that I'm not emotionally charged, or at least the charge is reduced greatly, and I can be curious about what I'm going through instead of completely reactive and shutting down, or doing the whole flight or fight, flight, fawn response. I don't shut down anymore. I can just be curious and inquisitive about, what I recognize that my heart is beating a little faster. I recognize that I feel slightly charged. I wonder what that was. And then I can be curious and go back and say, like, oh, okay, this happened, which made me think of this, which then set me off. Interesting. I wonder, like, let me feel that feel. If I can say, okay, let's feel that feeling. Like, what's coming up? Like, I can sit there and process it. If not, I can say, you know what, like right now is not a really good time for me to process this. Body, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. But I'm driving my car and now's not a really good time to like, pull over in a 6-lane highway and
do some trauma work.
Yeah. And also
that could cause some trauma.
That could cause some trauma. And I can say like, oh, you know what? I'm meeting with my therapist in a week, or I'm, like I can table this and I can journal it down, or make a note about it and be like, hey, this stuck with me, and then bring it to her. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that we have, from my standpoint, at least, I don't know that we ever get fully integrated in all areas. I think we make progress in maybe certain themes. Like if we could kind of categorize, it's interesting when I do EMDR with clients, we have different cards that have different negative cognitions or beliefs about ourselves, and they can put them in piles of, this is true for me, this is not true for me, I'm not sure about it. And as we kind of link together, what are those themes? What are the things that keep coming back to me that I keep maybe feeling stuck on, or that need some more work? And then we can move our way through and feel a sense of progress, not because we're fully integrated whole human beings. I feel like our whole lifetime is meant for continual practice and growth and exploring the different areas and layers and dynamics that's why I do what I do, because I love that process so much. But we can sense where we're feeling more vulnerable or that things are harder for us or more sensitive, so that we can say, oh, that part needs some time and attention. But I liked how you worded that, Sarah, that it was like you've got the tools, you're becoming more aware, it sounds like, so that you notice whenever something's coming up for you, that you're able to then evaluate, like, is this the time that I can do this, or do I need to kind of pause until I have my session with my therapist, or if I'm going to journal on it or whatever I want to do with it. But you know that it's something that's trying to get your attention so that it can have the work.
I think it's really important for me in those moments to remember all of that, or, and I can't always remember it. I have to turn to my notes to say, like, what's my tool? Like, what else can I use? Because it's when you're being flooded with emotion or triggered, I can't just readily recall what I'm supposed to do, but I have all my Post-it notes and I write, like, leave Post-it notes all over my house of, just notice, and be curious and say why, or, all the things my therapist and I go over, or we talk about in all of these episodes are, I can't just remember it all. So I write it all down. And also
I
it
wish
helps me
this
with,
was a video podcast so that people could see behind you on your wall.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't know, just trying to count maybe 15 different Post-it notes or something. I don't know, a whole slew of, I'm sure you're organizing all kinds of things in your work and your
but I do,
life. But
I love Post-it notes.
I
Love Post-it
see
notes.
that. I see that. But I think you're right. We need that little bit of a reminder, right? Because we forget and we come back, and we forget and we come back. And that Post-it note gives us a chance to come back and remember.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to bring my perspective in because I was thinking about this question, and what comes up for me, not to switch gears so quick, but is like my ADHD, and kind of how a lot of things just feel like distractions that I have to get through, and kind of observing things between, something trying to grab my attention and something my body's trying to tell me. It seems like a little different, with the trigger being a little bit more deeper and jarring. From my perspective before, I still have the end result of being distracted. And so I kind of view it as, another distraction, another, piece of stimuli I have to deal with. When now that I've sat with it and we've talked about, we've been talking about triggers for a minute now, just kind of how it feels different than a distraction, and how, like, I've taken more times to be purposeful whenever I feel the difference between a trigger and a distraction, being able to sit with the trigger and just saying, oh, that jarred me a little bit. What does that mean? Like, something with ADHD is you're constantly aware of your stimuli and it seems to be grabbing for your attention, but taking some moments with these triggers and understanding, hey, everybody has this and it's my body trying to tell me something. I've tried to be more purposeful with those moments and figure out, why did that happen, or what is that bringing up for me?
What's going on with that? Yeah, I like the idea of the word stimulus, and then having parentheses that are blank, like as a pause, and you can widen how long your pause is before you have your response. So stimulus, parentheses, like open parentheses, that you just kind of, in that pause is where you kind of can evaluate, like, what's happening here, what's coming up for me. That's giving my brain a chance to come back online instead of feeling just jolted, flipped lid, reactive in our trauma brain, in our feeling brain, that limbic part of our brain that's taking us somewhere else, which is what triggers do. They take us out of the present into an unresolved memory. So having that pause is giving a chance for our prefrontal cortex to come back online, to be able to be in the present in our functional adult, to say, oh, because remember, our prefrontal cortex has a timestamp that says, I'm here now. I'm safe now. I'm in my functional adult now. So this is where I can make the connections and the meaning and have the parts of my brain communicating to each other again. before I decide how I want to respond.
And sometimes I think of that, just how I talk to myself. I've been trying to thank my amygdala more recently. I know that isn't necessarily, I mean, it is with triggers, right? It's what goes through, kind of, it's part of the pass through. So just the other day, I don't remember what happened, but I was kind of like in a rushed moment. I was feeling stressed, and then I kind of felt triggered in some ways. And I was like, really now? Like, I'm already in a late rush hurry. And then I took pause and I was like, well, I am appreciative that my amygdala has got my back. And so I
Mhm.
thanked my amygdala and I was like, you know what, this isn't a problem I can deal with right now, but I hear you, and I'm going to put a pin in it and come back to it. So I thought
I
that's worked
love
really
that.
well.
Yeah. And it goes back to the whole purpose of the brain is for survival. Like the amygdala is 100% keeping us alive every single day. Like we're
Yeah.
here is because we've survived. That doesn't mean that we don't have unresolved work to do and things that we need to be able to store differently in our brain so they don't keep activating us. We don't want to stay in that heightened fight and flight mode all the time. The point is so that it gets our attention, wakes us up a little bit to say, oh, yeah, that's something I need to come back to, circle back to that, put more time and attention into that so that it can be heard and witnessed and seen and felt. And in that, it feels more resolved in my nervous system. So it gets stored differently. I can find the meaning in it, and it moves to my prefrontal cortex where I can have understanding and a timestamp to know that that isn't still happening now. I can be in the present now.
Speaking of being in the present now, talking about trail mix reminded me that, we talked about, take a moment to get some water, eat the raisins or not eat the raisins, or combine the raisins with this pretzel and a M&M, and then you get the whole thing. But, we also stop when we need to take trail mix to see how far, to take the break to see how far we've come and to see where we are. And I think that we keep we're talking about that right here and right now. So hopefully, when we think of trail mix, also think about, reflecting back on, how far we've come, what we've done, what we've gone through. But also, like you're just saying, Julie, being here now, like looking around and being present and taking in the view. Because if you're just trudging along the entire time, hiking's great, but you gotta like watch for rocks and roots and poison ivy and
Sometimes you have to check the map.
yeah,
Like
sometimes
it's
you check
giving
the
you a
map.
chance to pause and check the map. Like, what are the things that I need to notice?
Exactly.
I think
I
that's
just thought
really
that was
helpful. Yeah, that's good. So bringing it to a step of action, it's like, what do I do with the trigger that's happening, the unconscious thing that's becoming more aware? Because I'm aware, because I'm noticing, because I'm paying attention, there's something I can do in that to be responsive, which is like that idea of a secure attachment that we've talked about. That's how to reparent ourselves with love and nurture, to say, I'm listening, I see you, I hear you. Even when Samuel just gave the example of having to pause something, thanks for having my back. I see you. I need to tend to something. And I mean, it is a matter of making sure that we do circle back, and that's what I think these trail mix episodes are helpful for, because we can keep pushing and pressing and moving forward, but not really integrating and not really taking the time to make it more experiential and reflective. And it's a huge gift that our prefrontal cortex gives us, in the ability to be reflexive, to be able to think about thinking and sit with and notice, so that we can become more aware, more alert, more attentive, more attuned.
I would totally listen. That brings me back to the deep breath episode that we just released. Just even hearing your voice in that mode.
You recognized a
No, I
similar
didn't.
tone.
Yeah, to be fair, I was just editing it, so it's at the, front of
It's
my
right at the
mind.
forefront
But
of your mind.
yeah, I do. Well, let's knock out one more question before we go. Is that okay with you?
I started reading a new book last night by Shauna Shapiro, and I liked what she was talking about just in the very beginning, that what you practice grows stronger. And so reflect on, what do you want to grow? Which I think really speaks to the unconscious becoming conscious of whatever it is that we're doing, that we practice, that we keep repeating, that we bring into awareness. We're going to grow that. So if we focus a lot and ruminate on frustration and being irritated and all the things that are going wrong, we'll grow that. That'll become a stronger pathway in our brain. If we want to grow being aware or noticing, we practice that, and then we become more aware. We could want to grow or practice being loving or kind. The more we practice that, it grows stronger. It's like we're building muscles. We're building emotional, relational, mental muscles that we keep reinforcing it, it grows stronger. And maybe at first it feels kind of bumpy and awkward to be like, what is this thing of slowing down or being mindful or taking a deep breath? Like it might feel bumpy or you don't remember it at first. But the more you do it, you're like, the brain loves that, like having a template that it just keeps going back over because it goes, I know how to do that. It becomes more just a part of us, more fully integrated. And I saw another thing that I really like too, that says that we unconsciously repeat what we don't consciously repair. We unconsciously repeat what we don't consciously repair. So becoming more aware of the things that we want to do the work on and repair them so that we don't just go mindlessly through our day and our relationships with repeating things that are broken, and instead saying, I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to see the things that that need the time and attention and repair them. And then we can become more conscious and more, it's like a whole theme that's running through our How to Be a Healthy Human is this, at least lately, it's been this becoming more conscious, more present, noticing. So yeah, check out the deep breath, that new segment that is very short. It's every other week. It's only like 3 minutes long. So everybody has time for it. And it can kind of be that pause on the path to notice your feet and notice where you are and keep building that muscle just little by little by little, and it will strengthen it and grow it.
I dig it. I think that's one of the ways that you can kind of incorporate into your week too, or even going back and listening to stuff after doing Mom's deep breath episode. It might be something that I pull up a couple times instead of just the once, especially because it's so quick. I do think of this podcast sometimes as bringing this information to the forefront of your mind. Like we've talked about some of this information before, but getting into the practice, using that as a muscle, I think that's what this whole show is about.
I love that.
Didn't really cover anything anecdotal. You asked the question, how has your past impacted your ability to support your reparenting? Do you experience your past traumas as fully / partially or mostly integrated? And I think that's, I've kind of taken these last couple of minutes to wonder, why isn't anything coming to mind? Because it's really helpful when we can share our experiences. And to be fully honest, like I think I'm in a week of my life that there's a lot going on, and and anecdotally, I feel a little bit dry, like I have nothing to share. But this is a great prompt to say, hey, maybe you need to take some time and reflect and take deep breaths and think about everything that's been going on and take my own trail mix moment.
Mm,
Because there has been a lot going on. So
mm.
listeners, I hope you're taking this moment, and those deep breath moments, and also reflecting on this wonderful question, because I need to do a little bit more.
Hmm. And it's okay to be where you are. That it's not that you're looking to produce something all the time or to perform or to have this neat, tidy story that goes with it. It's living real life and being where you are and noticing that that's part of being human too. So I'm glad that you shared that, Sarah. You get to be human like the rest of us. That's one of my affirmations I say to myself, is like, I get to be human like everybody else, because sometimes we expect and have this standard of ourselves that is so high. And it's like, I get to be human like everybody else, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Humans are amazing and complex and wonderful and dynamic. And so we're leaning into that.
Thank you, Julie.
It's good to be with you both and all you listeners out there.
Agreed. I'm glad that we can take this time. We just sat down, the three of us, and kind of scheduled out the rest of season 3. So I'm super pumped. It's going to be awesome. And a great, reference guide to go back to. I'd encourage you to go through some of our prior episodes and just finding what trail mixes you can pull, out of the whole of the podcast. Where's the chocolate chunks of, boundaries, or coming back to home base, or regulation, whatever it may be. Yeah, I dig it. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for listening to our show, Community Roots. We're so glad that you could join us. Thanks, Sarah and Mom, for joining me as well. I hope you have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.